We have an enormous amount of respect for all of you who have chosen very challenging lives for yourselves. Because we know that you are not just doing it for your own experiences. We know that those of you who come forth and take on a lot are doing it for your entire ancestral line. You are helping past life versions of yourselves, and you are helping the generations that are to be born into your family in the future. If we thought things were getting tough before, we can be amazed at what is now occurring in our lives. The process of shifting into a higher frequency has become even more complex, messy and confusing, and even frightening at times. It is true that this transition is really delicate for many of you. Many of you do not understand what is going on. Why so much violence awakens around you. We have often told you about it. This transition creates cellular disturbances in many of you because it is often difficult to leave the old one to move on to a new way of life totally different from what you live and have lived. However, this transition is necessary, very necessary, as we have often signaled to you. Of course, a large number of humans would like it not to exist in order to remain locked in the tranquility of the habit of life that you had. We can speak to the past in your language because, from now on, this transition, which is effective, will lead you towards a total change of life. Your life will no longer be the same, and it is no longer the same. We will explain. First of all, there is a story of time. You live with linear time, a time made of minutes, hours, days, etc. And what have you been noticing for some time? You notice that the days pass very quickly. As if time said to you, be careful. You are going to another way of life. You are heading for non-time. We're finding that if we're still clinging to old patterns, beliefs, and emotional reactions, or to relationships or conditions that are holding us back in our awakening process, this push to let them go can get quite harsh. We are rising rapidly into a higher frequency now. And what this entails can sometimes be emotionally painful and, for some, physically so as well. You are helping parallel aspects of yourselves on other timelines and even in other universes. You are also helping all of humanity by moving through a very challenging life circumstance, or what some might even call a trauma, because you are showing others that there is another way. You are showing everyone who is connected to you that they too can handle life's challenges with grace, with dignity, and with love and joy flowing to them and through them. Life's traumas do not have to crush anyone, and what we are seeing there on Earth at this time is that far. Fewer of you are being crushed by those challenges that you placed in front of you before incarnating. It can be somewhat easier if we can stay aware that what we're experiencing is a type of death process. Our old 3D identity is in the process of dying, and if we aren't able to easily drop those things that are attached to this identity, they will be, sometimes rather abruptly, stripped away from us. The speed at which your days pass shows you that, little by little, the linear time that you live will fall apart to become what we live. Of course, this is not for your earthly time tomorrow, but it is preparing at high speed. There is a second point that will show you that your life will not be the same. It is the fact that, at all times, even if you don't fully realize it, you're going to have more and more precise thoughts on the universe, on the galactic brothers that we are. You are going to ask yourself more and more questions about life beyond Earth on other planets. It cannot be otherwise because your cells, your cellular memories are reactivated by the energies of peace and love which are offered to Earth from the celestial spheres. The cleaning of human cell memories will allow the erasure of everything that had been instilled in you by society, by religions, and that was not truth. You have been so manipulated for generations and generations that you all believe that life was what you live or have lived. Now, true life, as we have often told you, is spiritual, only spiritual. We do not say religious because religious such as Catholicism, Christianity, etc. deceived you about true life and the important beings that you are, since you are divine sparks without exception. So, to finish this message, we tell you that this transition is very necessary in order to purify who you are, in order to upgrade the understanding of true life in each of you, and in order to bring you back on the path of the Supreme Father who is in you, totally in you and in everything that lives around you. We need to understand that the new high-frequency energies on the planet are no longer allowing us to carry on with our old, limited, low-frequency understanding about ourselves. It's too small, too limited, too powerless for who we truly are. So sometimes radical changes need to happen. Sometimes things that are really important to us are pulled away, seemingly by external forces, but it's really our deeper self that is doing this. We need to trust that if something is disappearing from our lives, it's because it is something we can no longer take with us. The first thing you want to do when facing a seemingly insurmountable challenge is accept it. The second thing you want to do is to recognize that you chose it. The third thing you want to do is acknowledge your emotions that you feel in regards to it. The next thing you want to do is feel those emotions. And finally, having cleared those emotions, you will have a much different perspective on what it is that is actually happening. You will be able to see it as a springboard, a way for you to grow even more spiritually. All of life's traumas, challenges, and tragedies are nudging each and every one of you in a particular direction. And yet, at the same time that this death of our 3D self is occurring, we are also simultaneously being reborn. A new 5D identity is rising up within us. As old patterns are dropped, more and more room is made for this new self to manifest within us. It's just generally not as visible yet as the old identity that is fading away is. It can be difficult to notice it when we're in pain, confusion, or exhaustion. And yet we can, if we can just shift out of our old and familiar 3D consciousness and our passive acceptance of our limited and constrained 3D life. We can be aware that the ascension birth process, much like the physical birth process, can be painful, messy, and exhausting until we are fully born and free. And we can also begin seeing ourselves through the eyes of 5D consciousness, recognizing the magnificence of who we really are as powerful multidimensional beings, and realize how our life is already beginning to function in 5D reality. We can trust we are being guided in the best direction we can go in to get where we are headed, into a whole new world and life that operate in a radically new way. Some of you start support groups. Others form bonds with those who went through the circumstance with them. Some have spiritually transformative experiences during the trauma. And when you hear about someone who not only survived one of these very challenging experiences, but also is thriving now, you get inspired. You are all meant to inspire each other, and no one is meant to pity anyone else there on earth. But having compassion for someone is different from pitying them. And you are all meant to have compassion for your fellow humans who are going through the suffering that they are going through. And when you can hold space for one of those individuals to get what they are supposed to get out of it and eventually thrive, then you really are being of service to them, and you can watch and wait for their moment where they will inspire you and everyone else who eventually hears their story. And that is how you clear ancestral trauma and help everyone who shares planet Earth with you at this time.